Happy Saturday. Today is day 5 of the 12 days of articles in review. And unlike the 12 days of Christmas, I won't be giving you 5 golden rings, but I'm hoping that you'll take away some pearls from the article that I'm going to present to you. The article that I selected today, and there's several others that will support this same idea, but it was prompted by an email that I got. I'm part of a listserv, and one of the posts on the listserv was a question about do you allow mothers to visit that are in the middle of receiving blood transfusions? And if so, does the mother's nurse remain with her? So this was in relation to a NICU mom who was receiving a blood transfusion. And when I first read that, I get the clinical implications. I totally get it. But I was bothered, if you will, by the phrasing. And I think the way it was posted, there was probably no conscious thought about how the sentence was structured. Do you allow mothers to visit that are in the middle of the transfusion? And I started just, Googling, and I started, looking through my articles and trying to see, what is the best practice around this? Do people have protocols around this, which I think they should? And allowing, that word really bothered me. And of course, visit really bothered me. Clearly the mom is ill. She's needing a blood transfusion, but being with her baby is equally important. And I came across this wicked awesome paper, and actually as I started reading it, I fell in love with it, and I emailed the author, what's her title? Well, she's a PhD, Hilde Lindemann, and the name of the article is Why Families Matter, and it was published in Pediatrics in 2014. It's open access, so I'm wicked excited to share this paper with you. And what she was trying to convey was why families matter, and she gives some really good background around that, which I'll share with you, and then talks about this within the context of the pediatric patient, which again, our patients are pediatric patients. And her summary statement in her abstract, she states that she argues that there are situations in which the threat to family integrity is so real and serious that the interests of parents or siblings or grandparents may actually override the interests of the pediatric patient. And I thought that level of insight and awareness was really critical, is really critical for NICU clinicians to grasp, and all clinicians, that really understanding what is family, what is the inherent value to family, and not to marginalize it. I know, when I work with many NICUs, one of the chief challenges and concerns that is articulated is parental presence, the paucity of parental presence. That sure, there's a handful of parents that are there round the clock with their baby and really just become integrated and incorporated into the culture and the workflow and all that kind of stuff. And then there are parents that don't spend much time in the NICU for a variety of reasons that I and we may not even be aware of. But when I read this paper, it made me really start to reflect on those families in particular, the ones that aren't there, and what are we doing as professionals, as clinicians, as compassionate human beings to cultivate or create an atmosphere that is welcoming to them, that encourages them to be there. How do we support them? And not just, having a social worker visit them, like once or twice over their hospital stay, but how do we really understand what their challenges are and work to bridge those challenges? Because we know that at the end of the day, the family is the most critical therapeutic intervention, social intervention, interpersonal, psychological intervention, blah, blah, for the baby, and vice versa. The baby is for the family. And so I totally nerded out. I love this paper, and highlighted some of the aspects, but she describes, you know, first kind of getting into families as entities themselves. What is a family? What is the structure? And I think, you know, we're all part of a family, some more functional or dysfunctional than others, but we're all parts of families. And I think we just take that status for granted. Yeah, sure, it's family, you know, kind of thing, but not really diving down into what does that really mean? And then she goes on to elucidate the functions of family. And she talks about those functions within a pediatric context, that the family matters to the pediatric patient. Why? It goes beyond just that visitation phenomenon, having someone else there who's present and is not a healthcare professional, and really understanding what the role is, and that a lot of the things that we observe families doing, like, you know, their first responsibility is to preserving the integrity of the child. And in a healthy situation, parents, you know, teach the siblings and validate the identity and the importance of the other, of the infant, by, you know, doing things like, you know, being gentle with the baby, making sure the child's immunizations are up to date, putting the seatbelt on. All of these actions teach the child their value and their worth and their connection with others. And when these children don't even have that experience, right, of becoming acculturated into the social dynamics of their family, that they're, you know, kind of lost almost. You know, they become part of our network, right, the medical professionals network. And what do we offer that child in the absence of the family actively participating in the care, right? It's a completely different dynamic. Wouldn't you agree? And so I'm just scrolling down to the bits that I highlighted. So she has this, you know, really cool section that she talks about the family's inherent value. And her second paragraph, she says, first, families are places of love. It's often said that children need love just as much as they need food, clothing, and other goods and services that families provide. So it might be thought that love makes families instrumentally, not inherently, valuable. But that is to mistake the nature of love. It's not a service, right? It's, you know, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and that bottom part of the pyramid, you know, air, fluid, nutrition, shelter, and that sort of thing. Love is a little bit higher up on that pyramid, but I think sometimes we forget the inherent value of love. Again, that it's not like clean clothes in the drawer or a good like a hot dinner. It is rather a specific kind of interpersonal connection that, as much as I love my patients, I don't love them in the same way that their families do. And that developing that loving relationship has a bit of a timeline to it, if you will, right? That critical biochemical phenomenon that happens right after birth, where the mother and the parents' brains are being bathed in all of these wicked awesome neurochemicals, oxytocin, vasopressin, the hormones that facilitate connection and attachment. And the same thing is happening in the baby, that they become this synchronous dyad that through the proximity, physical and emotional proximity, they become one. They become connected. It becomes a defining moment for both the family and the infant of who they are and their identity. And in the absence of that, we begin to derail the development. And so the inherent value of the family is not just, as she mentions in one of them, that, you know, cheap labor. You know, that we think, well, the parents, we're going to have them come in and they can do some of these tasks that we feel we can pass on to them, and I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. It is a good thing. But the parent needs to own more of the care than that. They need to be continuously present. And even if they have a blood transfusion going on, if they're medically stable and able to come to the NICU, then they should be supported in that role, in that presence, in that validation of their identity. Parents, as it goes on, it talks about families under pressure, and she goes on to articulate that parents may find their own identities under siege because they cannot perform their parenting roles because of this critical illness, and that exerts additional stress, worry, and sleeplessness onto them, and contributes to a sense of inadequacy, which can be expressed as anger. They may remove themselves from the environment, right? And you see this, you see parents, and almost you feel like they're going to show up like 2 days before discharge, and they really don't know this person. They're really not prepared for the transition of care, and why is that? And why do we continue to struggle to create processes and policies and partnerships with parents that really do serve their needs, that help them in this crisis and help them recognize the significant contribution they have to this new member in their family? Why do we struggle with that? Why do we think that that's social worker's job or somebody else's job? We need to change that paradigm. It's almost like we're trying to put a Band-Aid on a situation and we're not getting to the root cause. And I mean, great organizations like, the Preemie Alliance, the National Perinatal Association, and other organizations are really trying to address the knowledge gaps and the practice gaps and address the mental health concerns of parents, but we still are not there. We're still not at the right place where we need to be. I just want to share a little bit more with the paper where she talks about, again, the value of family. It's one thing when a hospital nurse gives a medication that makes the pain go away, right? I mean, that's what we do. We address the pain and we give you a medication. But that experience is completely different when mama or mom is the one, and she does it at home, or she transmits the comfort of love, the familiarity, and the connection along with the dose, right? So, and how many of us do that? How many of us have the parents at a point where they are competent and confident to do that? And maybe, through, practice reasons or legal reasons and stuff like that, maybe we can't have them, administer the intravenous medications and stuff like that, but they can be there and have that additional component of the non-pharmacological dimensions of this, right? That just elevate the effectiveness of the pharmacological intervention, right? Why do we struggle with this? The inability to give familial care in a hospital setting, even when the family recognizes the need for the professional help and is grateful for it, may leave family members feeling helpless and at a loss, frustrated by not being able to do what they do best. And what do they do best? They comfort, they love, they care, they're there. And that's something that no matter how long you've been doing this, you will never replace that parental love, that parental connection. And so it behooves us to really re-examine the language that we use, the questions that we ask, how we phrase these things. Because if we don't, healthcare professionals do not really understand the relationship between families and medicine, then we're going to make things worse. By separating these two, we are not doing anybody any good at all, including ourselves. Parents, families become the greatest advocate and the greatest partner for us. When we're squawking that we don't have enough hands on deck to do all these other cares, the comfort cares, the non-pharm strategies, all that kind of stuff, who can we blame but ourselves if we are not creating a welcoming environment for these families to come in and partner with us and really validate their identity? We need to take families more seriously. This is how she's culminating her paper. What's at stake is the well-being not only of our sickest children, but of those social entities in which they live. Again, kind of coming back to birth across the board becomes a defining moment. And certainly it's no less defining when the birth is complicated by critical illness. So we have this amazing opportunity as professionals to validate this moment, this birth, and help the parents overcome the traumatic stress that they're enduring as a result of this, and bring them forward, bring them on this journey, connect them. Stop using the language that separates them and invalidates them. Yes, address the medical challenges of that. I get that there is medical concerns around, a mom, at the bedside with blood hanging. But you know what? I'm a nurse. And maybe there's some cross-training that needs to happen. Maybe there's some other things. We need to be more creative. We can't keep saying that the solution is getting the parent out of the way or pushing them away from this, because that's not the right thing to do. It never has been, and it never will be. And until we can figure out some real solutions to that, we're still going to be frustrated and asking the same question over and over again. Where are the parents? Why aren't they here? They want to be there. We need to turn to ourselves and figure out what is it that we're missing, and ask them, what is it that we're missing? And there's so many other papers that I could have brought in on this, but I just really felt aligned, with this paper. And I hope you take the time to read this. I think you really find it insightful and clinically relevant. So please, make some comments. I want to hear your feedback about this. And that's what I got for you today, okay? So I'll see you tomorrow on the last day of 2017. In the meantime, take care and always care well.